Okay, a couple of you viewers actually told me about this story a little while ago, a little over a week ago, and I've been wanting to talk about it here, and just been very, very busy. So I haven't been able to get around to really discussing this thing, but I actually have put a little bit more research into it than just this article on Fox News. The headline here says, "City of Houston demands pastors turn over sermons." And if you haven't heard about this female, they call her a lesbian. The Bible term is just sodomite. I believe it's the Bible term when you have members of the same sex fornicating with each other. Basically, you are a sodomite. It's the sin of Sodom. So you had this sodomite female mayor, and basically she has subpoenaed these pastors for their sermon notes, or so goes the story. And people are really getting all heated about this. The First Amendment, this is an attack, a direct attack on the First Amendment and religious freedom and everything else. And you say, what do you think about it, Brian? Well, I think that it is an attack, but I haven't really heard anybody talking about it, what's really going on here. So I'm going to show you I'm going to show you two videos, actually a newscast thing here, just about a little over 2 minutes newscast. Now I'm actually going to show you this sodomite mayor, her what she's saying about this whole thing. She actually did, quote unquote, back off a little bit, and I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to make some comments on it. So let's watch this video here.
Breaking tonight, Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott now demanding that Houston city officials withdraw subpoenas that they issued for 5 local pastors, now being questioned about the sermons that they are making. Todd Starnes is a Fox News radio host. He broke this story, and he has the details tonight. Todd?
Yeah, that's right, Megan. Looks like the mayor got her hand caught in the religious liberty cookie jar on this one. We know that 5 pastors in the Houston area were handed these subpoenas, and the city was specifically looking for all of their correspondence with their parishioners, their congregations, letters, emails, text messages, but even more than
confessionals. I mean, it's like
even more than that, the sermons themselves, and they specifically were looking for sermons where the pastors talked about homosexuality, gender identity issues, and the mayor herself. So that's where we're at here.
She is openly gay.
The mayor is openly gay, and she is fiercely supportive of this non-discrimination ordinance that was passed by the city council. But the religious community there has a problem with a component of this ordinance that allows men who identify as women to use the restroom of their choice and vice versa. And that's where a number of the religious people in that community had an issue.
All right, so they challenged it in court, or they want another vote on it. They're saying, no, this isn't, we don't like that part of the ordinance.
Right, they want another vote, and so there was a lawsuit filed, and in the process of discovery, the city went after these pastors who are not even party to this lawsuit and demanded that they turn over this information. And what's very interesting is just a few moments ago, the Attorney General weighed in, and we do know that the subpoenas have not been rescinded, but Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott just released a statement, and he is demanding that the city of Houston rescind those subpoenas. And he says the people of Houston and their religious leaders must be absolutely secure in the knowledge that their religious affairs are beyond the reach of the government. And he called what they did a direct assault on religious liberty, Megan.
I think that's written into the Constitution somewhere. Todd, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, there you have it. And they just make it look like, oh, these guys have free speech and everything else. And as I've been warning about and saying now for many, many years, 501c3 is the government. If you are not aware of this issue, okay, if you are new to this channel and you don't really know, a lot of you old timers, you're already nodding your head, you know where I'm going. But if you're new, you don't really understand this, I'm going to go to the IRS's actual website. You can go to irs.gov, and in the search area, just type in 501 and then lowercase c and then a 3, 501c3, okay? And what you'll have is it'll come up with a bunch of subcategories there in the search results. look for the one that says exemption requirements 501c3 organizations. Okay, click on that one, and I'll put this up on screen here. It says, to be tax exempt under section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, an organization must be organized and operated exclusively for exempt purposes set forth in section 501c3, and none of its earnings may inure to any private shareholder or individual. In addition, it may not be an action organization, i.e., it may not attempt to influence legislation as a substantial part of its activities, and it may not participate in any campaign activity for or against political candidates. Okay, that's why a lot of times you'll go to one of these churches and they'll say, I can't tell you who to vote for. You know why they're saying that? Because they're 501c3. They are a government organization. The federal government is in control of that organization. They tell them what to say. And you say, yes, but you see, it says there a substantial part of its activities. That means it's some, it can do a little bit. You know, and I saw the little liar Steven Anderson came out and he said that, you know, well, it's 5%. As long as they can do 5% of the yearly sermons and still fall under the official regulations and not get in trouble with the government. Well, that means that 95% of your speaking is controlled then. And you're only allowed to do 5% of talking about wicked legislation like this thing. Letting men decide, I want to use the ladies' restroom today because I feel like I'm a woman today. Huh? Excuse me? You know, perverse legislation. And yes, Christians should stand against that and say, no, this is wrong. This is wicked. But because they went under 501c3 legislation back in the 1960s under Lyndon Baines Johnson, because they went under that, it says there, it may not attempt to influence legislation. So see, they don't talk about this. It's just First Amendment rights. We have a right. We have, you know, Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Well, that's very true. That is the First Amendment. But you get rid of that when you go under this code right here, when you go under 501c3. So is this Sodomite mayor, is she persecuting Christian churches? Yes. Does she have a legal right to? Yes. See, that's the confusion of this whole thing here. That's why I'm so much opposed to 501c3. You know? I mean, it'd be like you getting in a contract with me. We go down to the notary public and you say, I hereby grant authority to Brian Denlinger to come and take my pickup truck and take it out in the field and destroy it. And we go and we get the thing notarized, we sign it, I sign my name, you sign your name and whatever, and you go on about your business and things, and a year later I show up and say, I'm here to get your truck and take it out in the field and destroy it. And you say, you have no right to do this, you have no right. I have the paper. Yes, I do have a right. It's my private property, you have the right. Then you shouldn't have signed it over to me. See? That's what's going on here. You have no right to tell us what to preach, and you have no right to subpoena our sermons and things. She has every right in the world because they're 501c3. That's the whole thing. Yes, the legislation is wicked. Yes, she herself is wicked. But she has the right to subpoena these hirelings, these creatures of the state. She has a right to subpoena them and to take them to court and stuff and say, hey, you're trying to influence legislation here. That's exactly what they're doing. Now we're going to watch a video of this mayor. We're going to see what she's saying here. Okay? Watch this.
As a follow-up to a promise I made earlier this week, the City of Houston has revised its subpoenas, not withdrawn its subpoenas, but revised its subpoenas in the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance repeal petition case. The disputed request has been narrowed to focus solely on communications related to HERO and the petition gathering process. There is no mention whatsoever of sermons or anybody's feelings about homosexuality. This was always the intent of the subpoenas. I hasten to say that the lawyers on the other side knew what the intent was. They chose to spin this up into something it was not. But to be perfectly clear, we have revised the subpoenas. The original subpoenas were filed by pro bono attorneys, excellent attorneys, helping the city prepare for the January trial in this case, but they were too broad. They were typical attorney language in a discovery motion. They were asking for everything but the kitchen sink, and we're making sure exactly what we want to see. I support the right of the clergy to say whatever they want to say, even when I disagree with them. We don't need to intrude on matters of faith to have equal rights in Houston, and it was never the intention of the city of Houston to intrude on any matters of faith or to get between a pastor and their parishioners. This is about what they may or not be preaching from the pulpit. It is about proving that the petition gathering process organized by these pastors did not meet the requirements of the city charter. And remember, they sued the city. This is part of our response.
Okay, let me just pause it there for a minute. Okay, now, is she really being honest here? And by the way, this is her YouTube channel where she's saying this is Mayor Anise Parker is the YouTube channel there. You can go and watch this video for yourself. We're not going to watch the whole thing. But, you know, is she being honest there and saying, you know, I don't really care and I believe in religious liberty and stuff? No, I think that she got a lot of media attention. So as a sodomite, she kind of has to back off on the persecution a little bit because it's still kind of early, you know, to really persecute Christians all that well. But the fact is what she's saying is right. You know, they passed legislation. These hirelings that have the 501c3 buildings, they came out and said, we're going to sign this petition to have this law revoked. Well, I'm sorry. Their IRS website, it may not attempt to influence legislation. 501c3 official code. You cannot attempt to influence legislation. See, and all these guys, I know I've heard from 501c3 pastors for years now, and oh, there's no laws, you know, we're allowed to preach whatever we want to preach, we're allowed to do whatever we want to do. Well, yeah, you were for a long time, you know, the noose has been around your neck since the beginning, but it hasn't been tightened. And now you're starting to feel a little bit of tension around the neck, you're starting to feel like you're going to get hung, and it's like, wait a second, this isn't fair. It's perfectly fair. You're signed up with the government. And you see, this whole movement right here, I believe, it's kind of interesting because this is probably going to be another sermon in the future, get into this thing in more detail. But if you study Catholicism, down through the centuries, Catholicism has always had crusades. The Crusaders, you know, they get these soldiers and they got the white garment on with the big blood red cross and the white shield and the big red cross and things. And they would go out and wage war because, see, Catholicism believes that they have two swords, the spiritual and the temporal. Okay, and I've showed that in other studies. In other words, the temporal sword is they believe that they have the right to rule every country. And they do. And they still believe that way, by the way, too. It's just there's a lot of smoke screens out there. Oh, they're just a church. They're just an organization wanting world peace and things. Yeah. Study the book of Revelation. They're going to be in power. They already are in power. It's just a lot of it's behind the scenes, and we aren't being burned at the stake or tortured yet. But, of course, they will be in the time of Jacob's trouble. I can't say whether or not Christians will be before the time of Jacob's trouble. You know, before the rapture, I should say. I don't know. But my point is, Catholicism has always had crusades, okay, as a military power. That's the way they do things. The Bible talks about the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force, in Matthew chapter 11. The Catholics are always trying to take the kingdom of heaven, the physical, visible kingdom on earth. And so they do these crusades over and over and over again. They'll go and have crusades. You say, what's a modern day crusade? I believe sodomy. Think about it. Here you got all these priests that are sodomites, pedophiles, perverts, really. And I've heard numbers of 90 to 95% of Catholic priests are pedophile, or sodomites, excuse me. Well, then they go pedophile, a lot of them too. But the point is, you get all these Catholic priests and they're sodomites. Wouldn't it make sense to get more victims to choose from, you know? More sodomite little friends and things like that. So you create a crusade. And so this crusade, I mean, you know, you had the Olympics there a little while ago in Russia or whatever, or going to be in Russia. I don't follow sports, so I don't really know. But the point is, there's all these sodomites that Russia was like, no sodomites or no whatever. And you had sodomites going over to protest, and sodomite, you know, they have gay rallies and all this other stuff. Why? Because it's part of a crusade. And you'll have people that'll give their life to the cause of sodomy. And they will go out and they'll protest, and they'll try to shut your channel down if you're anti-sodomite. If you say anything against them, there's a crusade. I believe that this woman, mayor, is part of that crusade. And you see, once the sodomites figure out the church is there's already a governmental stipulation saying churches are not allowed to do anything to affect public policy, to influence legislation. Why do you think that gay marriage has been passed like crazy? It's interesting, too. I have another story. Went and forgot to bring it over here to the table, but there's in Idaho, pastors are being forced to perform gay weddings. I'll put the picture up here on screen. They're being forced to perform gay weddings. And if they don't, they go to jail. Now, how easy would it be to go and shut down Bible believers? Those that are still meeting in churches, church buildings. How easy would it be to do that? All you got to do is just figure out, hey, they're 501c3. There's this clause within 501c3 legislation that they're not allowed to do anything political activism. So let's just go and walk into these places, make problems, and we'll get them shut down. Yeah. Perfect crusade. Catholicism comes through and they have their tolerance and their love, and we think that the gay community is okay. And while some of us disagree with the lifestyle, yeah, sure. They're not going to shut down the Catholics, but they'll come after Bible believers and other people too that are still holding on to the thing of the Bible's plain teaching that sodomy is wrong. See? So this story here, you know, at first sight, it's like, oh no, the city of Houston demands pastors turn over sermons. That's what the headline says. Oh man, this is bad. The city of Houston going after the religious freedom and stuff like this. That's not really what it's about. It's about the city of Houston demanding the rights that are already there, that are already on paper. And she's exactly right in what she's saying. Does she have an agenda behind it? Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't doubt that for 1 minute. But the point is, she's right in what she's saying. Hey, they sued the city over the bill that was passed, legislation that was passed, you know. And as 501c3 corporations, they're not allowed to do that. They are not allowed to try to do something to influence legislation. So the noose has been around the neck of the church buildings, the Babel buildings, for a long time now, since the 1960s. And now it's going to start becoming tighter and tighter and tighter. And I'm going to tell you, there will come a day when Bible-believing Christians cannot worship in public places in terms of church buildings. That day is rapidly approaching. I am more and more convinced of it. Every passing day, I'm more and more convinced of this thing. Just like, get out of those places. You can still do work for the Lord. It's not that, oh no, we're limited because we don't have a $500,000 building. You can still do all kinds of things for the Lord, you know. But the point is, you're not going to be tied down to this Babel building anymore with all the things that go along with that. Okay? So, time is ticking away. If you can hear our clock over here going. Forgot to shut the chime thing off. But time is running out for the Babel buildings. God's never been behind these buildings. He's never been for these buildings. You read the entire New Testament, nobody's worshiping in buildings. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And if you're in one, you really start to you better start making plans to get out. And at the very least, have a plan, an exit strategy from those buildings. It's very important that you get away from that. Very, very important. It's going to be more important as time goes by. And if you are out, do work for the Lord. And don't try to legitimize yourself with the federal government. And I mean, I actually knew of a house church back in Pennsylvania that actually had gotten 501c3 status. And I'm thinking, why in the world would you do a thing like that? That's really stupid. You don't need anybody's permission to worship the Lord. You don't need anybody's permission to meet with other Christians, to go out evangelizing, soul winning. You don't need anybody's permission to do that other than the Lord Jesus Christ. That's all you need. So that's going to be it for this video. Just incredible times of which we're living in here. Just amazing. So we will see you in the next video.